Hello my friends, I've been using DJI OSMO Action 3 for about 8 months, which means that it is time for a long-term review. DJI basically went back to making conventional action cameras after the Action 2 detour. Having said that, it is still a bit different type of action camera than the GoPro Hero 11 for example. I will talk more about that in this video. We will also take a look at the firmware updates, the overall performance, and some of the accessories that I've been using with DJI OSMO Action 3. Most of the action camera discussion revolves around the performance nowadays, but for me the highlight of the OSMO Action 3 is the usability. By that I mean the form factor, durability, overheating resistance, mounting options, and so on. First of all, it is noticeably smaller than the GoPro or One RS, which is a pretty big deal for an action camera. The construction is very sturdy. The edges are rubberized, the surface is nice and grippy, and it comes with a rubber bumper for the lens cover. It is waterproof up to 16 meters, which is also more than the competitors. Another thing that I appreciate a lot is the lens cover with a simple thread. This is, in my opinion, the simplest and the best solution, especially if you use filters a lot, but we will get to that later. The magnetic mounting system is also one of the highlights. It allows you to very quickly attach and detach Action 3 to any type of mount or accessory. The magnetic mount is secured by 2 latches, so there is no chance that it will separate accidentally. A disadvantage is that it is not as minimalistic as an integrated mount, but I think that it is worth it. Besides that, the Action 3 comes with an additional frame that allows you to mount the camera vertically. It is included even in the base package and it provides additional protection, so big thumbs up for that. One of the most distinctive and arguably most important features of the OSMO Action 3 is, in my opinion, the field of view. It uses an extremely wide lens that can provide 10mm full-frame equivalent field of view after stabilization crop in ultra-wide setting. This field of view setting is very suitable for point of view filming and mounted use. It is probably less suitable for point and shoot type of use. There is also a wide setting with 11mm full-frame equivalent field of view, which is already noticeably narrower and comes with significantly less distortion. The last setting is the standard or D-Warp mode, offering 15mm full-frame equivalent and completely rectilinear image with no warping. Action 3 uses a relatively large 1/1.7 inch 12MP sensor, which has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are mostly related to lower processing requirements associated with lower resolution, lower heat production, and lower power consumption. A disadvantage is that it limits the video resolution to 4K, but that is generally fine for an action camera. It shoots very nice 4K video with a solid amount of detail. It is very similar to the Action 2, and I was definitely able to get some very nice and detailed footage with this sensor and lens combination with the Action 2. OA3 can shoot 4K up to 120p, which means that you don't need to upscale the slow-mo footage, which is great. It can also shoot open-gate 4:3 video, which is very useful for reframing and for shooting horizontal and vertical video at the same time. One of the biggest improvements that came with firmware updates was the increase of dynamic range. Overexposed highlights were a major issue with early firmwares. You could actually get parts of frame that were just white in more extreme situations. That has been greatly improved by firmware updates. Now it captures much more dynamic range and the automatic exposure also works better. Now I can say that I am very happy with the dynamic range on the OSMO Action 3. DJI's approach is still fundamentally different to the GoPro in this regard. The GoPro is always trying to capture as much dynamic range as possible. That usually works well, but you will get almost iPhone-like shadow overexposure with incorrect white balance in some difficult scenes. Especially with an overcast sky, Action 3 provides much more realistic color reproduction. The colors from the OSMO Action 3 are quite accurate, especially by action camera standards in the normal color setting. A new feature introduced in one of the firmware updates is enhanced image quality. According to the manual, it should increase the dynamic range, which it actually does. It is not a night and day difference, but it reveals extra detail in shadows, so I leave it on all the time. Another big change introduced by a firmware update concerns the D-Cinelike setting. You can now shoot real 10-bit footage in the D-Cinelike setting. It captures a very solid amount of dynamic range, but it is still easy to work with. The amount of sharpening in this mode is relatively low, which is what I prefer. You can generally get very nice footage using the D-Cinelike mode. My favorite feature on the original DJI OSMO Action was the HDR mode. That also works very well with the Action 3. Now it shoots real HDR 10-bit footage. It reveals more detail in the shadows, but it still does so in a tasteful way. I definitely recommend trying it. Osmo Action 3 uses a relatively large 1/1.7 inch sensor. The low-light performance is very solid for an action camera. Besides the lower amount of noise, the processing is also much more natural in comparison to the GoPro. The low-light performance is generally better than with GoPro. DJI claims 30 cm minimum focus distance on the Osmo Action 3. That has caused a bit of controversy, but the whole situation was very overdramatized. It is probably not 100% in focus at 30 cm, but DJI has fine-tuned the sharpening in firmware updates, which help the close-up image quality to a certain extent. I would say that it is definitely good enough for vlogging. GoPro Hero 11 actually isn't completely sharp at 30 cm either, but nobody talks about that for some reason. Osmo Action 3 uses the third generation of rock-steady stabilization, and it works very well as expected. Static shots look like on a tripod and panning is super smooth. Walking or even running also looks really good, which is partially achieved by that field of view. There is also enhanced RS Plus mode and horizon steadying, which works up to 45 degrees, but the base RS is great, so I use it pretty much all the time. It is basically what you would expect from a high-end action camera released in 2022. The stabilization also works very well in the low light. Dusk situations are completely fine, so it only loses efficiency in very low light, which is a very good result. Osmo Action 3 can also take very nice 12 megapixel ultra-wide stills. These actually capture a very nice amount of detail. It can also shoot RAWs with a solid amount of dynamic range. I have also been very happy with both displays during my 8 months of use. 2.25-inch back screen has a very high resolution at 326 pixels per inch. It is very detailed and very color accurate. The aspect ratio is 16:9, which means that no space is wasted by the black bars if you shoot 16:9, which is what I personally prefer. The front screen uses a 1.4-inch panel with the same 326 pixels per inch resolution, so the image quality is basically the same. Importantly, it is touch sensitive and basically uses action to user interface, which means that it can control almost everything. This is very convenient, for example, for mounted use with restricted access to the main screen. I still think that the user interface on the Action 3 is one of the best of all action cameras. It uses the usual swipe gestures and well-organized main menu. Everything is relatively easy to find and all of the items are sufficiently large, so it is fairly easy to operate in difficult conditions. The same applies to the DJI Mimo app. It still has one huge advantage over the GoPro, and that is that it will keep the live view going after you press the recording button. With the GoPro, it will just go black. DJI Mimo is, in my opinion, a great app overall, very simple to use, the camera connects automatically, and it is 100% reliable. I also appreciate that it works with other DJI devices, except the drones, of course. The battery life is a big part of the usability factor that I've talked about in the beginning of the video. Osmo Action 3 uses a 1770 mAh battery. I was able to get 140 minutes of 4K 20p video on a full charge, which is the best battery life of all action cameras on the market. Especially if you have 3 batteries included in the combo package, you can keep it running for a very long time. Action 3 is also the most overheating resistant action camera of the current generation. I was able to get pretty much unlimited recording even at 4K 60p. The camera was moderately warm after about 30 minutes, but definitely no drama. If you are looking for a camera that will work reliably in difficult conditions, Osmo Action 3 is very suitable for that. Personally, I am a big fan of Osmo Action 3 and the DJI Pocket 2 combination. Pocket 2 is still one of my all-time favorite cameras regardless of the type. It works great for handheld and all-round use. 20mm full-frame equivalent focal length is in my opinion very suitable for that, and it is also great for close-up filming or vlogging. Action 3 is great for mounted use, it has much wider field of view and it is also more durable, so they complement each other very well. I am currently working on a similar Pocket 2 video which will be available in the foreseeable future. I have made a full comparison with GoPro Hero 11 back in 2022, but the firmware update of the Osmo Action 3 have changed things a bit. Dynamic range issues of the Osmo Action 3 are gone, so now I can say that I prefer the video processing of the Action 3 overall. GoPro still captures more detail thanks to that 5.3K ability and 20 megapixel sensor, but the Osmo Action 3 is closer after firmware updates. The close-up image quality is also slightly better with the GoPro, but definitely not perfect as I've explained. Action 3 is better in the low light. An advantage of the GoPro is the option to shoot in 8:7 aspect ratio, although the Action 3 can basically shoot 8:6 video. The Osmo Action 3 in my opinion wins in terms of the overall usability. It is smaller, it has that magnetic connection, in my opinion superior lens cover solution, better battery life, it is more overheating resistant, it has better rear screen, and it allows you to monitor video recording through the app. Osmo Action 3 is also significantly cheaper. To be honest, I would probably give the win to the Osmo Action 3 at the moment due to that superior usability. One more thing that I would like to mention is the combo package. I think that it is a great value and well worth the extra money over the standard package. First of all, it includes 3 batteries and a fast charge USB-C charger for 3 batteries. Besides being a really good charger, it can work as a power bank and it can store 3 extra SD cards. You will also get 2 magnetic mounts in this package and 1.5 meter extension rod. The magnetic mount is compatible with standard GoPro mount, which means that you can use it with any action camera mount. Also worth mentioning are the filters. I have the whole set from Freewell and I think that they are quite useful. The circular polarizer can help a lot in difficult light conditions and reveal detail in some parts of the frame, especially the sky. To sum up, DJI Osmo Action 3 was a well-rounded action camera at the time of the release, and now it is even better after the firmware updates. Dynamic range and image quality improvements are very significant. Now it combines even better output with excellent usability and feature set at a very reasonable price point. One of the key aspects of the Osmo Action 3 is still very wide field of view, which is very suitable for POV filming. The stabilization is great, both screens as well, and the user interface is very user-friendly, but the biggest highlight for me is that usability and robustness that I've talked about. Overall, it is a very good action camera and the price is right, so I can recommend it. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.